The national debt of the Philippines is the total debt, or unpaid borrowed funds, carried by the national government of the Philippines. As of February 2023, the general government debt of the Philippines amounts to 13.42 trillion pesos or $246.34 billion. Total outstanding debt, 13.42 trillion pesos, which is 60.9% of GDP in December 2022. The national debt of the Philippines is the total debt, or unpaid borrowed funds, carried by the national government of the Philippines. The figure reflects that the Philippines can pay off its debts. While high national debt is generally associated with negative impacts, some argue that there are also positive effects. It's important to note that these positive impacts are subject to certain conditions and should be viewed in a broader context. Here are a few potential positive effects of high national debt. Stimulating economic growth. Increased government borrowing and spending can stimulate economic growth in certain situations. When the government uses borrowed funds to invest in infrastructure projects or provide fiscal stimulus, it can boost employment, productivity, and overall economic activity. This, in turn, can lead to increased tax revenues and improved economic performance. Funding public investments. National debt can provide the necessary funds for critical public investments in areas such as infrastructure, education, healthcare, and research and development. By financing these investments, high debt levels can contribute to long-term economic development and improve the country's competitiveness. Crisis management and stability. During times of economic crises or emergencies, such as recessions or natural disasters, high national debt can provide a cushion for the government to implement counter-cyclical policies and provide necessary relief and support to affected sectors. It allows governments to act quickly and prevent further economic downturns. Interest rate benefits. High national debt can sometimes lead to lower interest rates. When a country has a credible and stable fiscal policy, it can attract investors who are willing to lend at lower interest rates. This can reduce the overall cost of borrowing for the government and free up funds for other priorities. Safe haven status. In certain situations, countries with high levels of national debt can be considered safe havens for investors seeking a stable and secure investment option. This can lead to increased demand for the country's bonds and lower borrowing costs. The immediate effect of high Philippine debt is high interest rates. Acknowledging uncertainties, more recent observations suggest that large increases in the debt-to-GDP ratio could lead to much higher taxes, lower future incomes, and intergenerational inequity. There are several ways to reduce the national debt. One way is to increase taxes. This can be done by increasing income tax rates or by introducing new taxes. Another way is to reduce government spending. This can be done by cutting back on programs or services that are not essential. A third way is to sell government assets. According to a report by the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, PCIJ, more and more Filipinos are growing concerned over the country's national debt. The high national debt is a significant concern for many countries, including the Philippines. Here are a few key points that Filipinos might consider when discussing the national debt. Economic stability. Filipinos may be concerned about the impact of high national debt on the country's economic stability. They might question whether the government can effectively manage the debt and ensure sustainable economic growth. Government spending and services. Some Filipinos might worry that a high national debt could limit the government's ability to provide essential public services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure development. They may be concerned about potential cuts in public spending due to the need to allocate funds to debt repayment. Taxation. The issue of high national debt often leads to discussions about taxation. Filipinos might debate whether increasing taxes or implementing new tax policies are necessary to address the debt burden. There may be differing opinions on how increased taxation could affect individuals and businesses. Future generations. Filipinos may express concerns about the impact of the national debt on future generations. They might worry about the long-term consequences and the burden placed on future taxpayers if the debt is not properly managed. Government accountability. Some Filipinos might raise questions about the transparency and accountability of the government's borrowing and spending practices. They may call for greater oversight and monitoring to ensure that borrowed funds are used effectively and efficiently.